What you are listening to is real. The participants are not actors. They are actual litigants with a case pending in the squared circle. Both parties have agreed to dismiss their cases and have their disputes settled here in our forum, the Turnbuckle Debate.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Turnbuckle Debate. My name is Sneed.
I'm Chad.
I'm the beast from the southeast, Bone Bigelow.
And our guest joining us today, no stranger to the tavern, Matt from the Extracooler Show. What's up, man?
What's going on, boys? Thank you again for having me back. I think I've got some Booker T in me this time. I'm five time. I think it's here. It's here. So thanks.
Well, I think it's only fitting. Man. Hit the spin-a-rooney.
Oh man, all right, let's go. Headphones off.
You gotta go
like that. Throw my feet in the air, see what happens.
Yeah, man.
One of our favorite return guests, Matt, coming back from the Extracooler Show. If you guys haven't checked out the Extracooler Show, punch it into your Apple and Spotify. Great show. Let us know, Matt, what's been going on with the Extracooler Show and all you guys have going on.
All right. So if you haven't heard of us just yet, we are a nostalgic show, I guess you can say. We are going back and watching old wrestling with four friends that have. I'm the youngest of the group. I've only been friends with them for about 20 years. They're dating back even further. So four of us knuckleheads get together, like to joke and trash on old wrestling, have a blast. And then in the next week, we do a current episode, which we call the extra credit episodes. We go through current wrestling, have a fun rundown of what's going on in the world of wrestling. But yeah, we're in the middle of Survivor Series 1893. We do 2 parts. We're taking on the entire card, which is a blast. And there's a whole bunch of shenanigans in that one. So good time. Come check us out. Like Chad said, anywhere you find your podcast, Apple, Spotify, the Extracooler Show. And if you haven't seen Nick's artwork, go hit up Instagram or Twitter at Extracooler, and you've got one hell of an artist right there. So check us out.
Yeah, Extracooler, one of our favorite artists. Obviously, we're partial to Extracooler. We're all under the Pod Foundation family. So love you guys, everything you're doing. Guys, go check them out. Yeah,
man. Super excited to have you back. We have 3 new topics. You know the format, and I think we don't have to deal with Tom tonight. So I think we're
part of me is a little disappointed. Nothing to J-Bone. I'm happy you're here, brother. I haven't seen you in a long time, but I always like dumping on Tom. I'm sure we'll find a way. We'll do it anyway.
I think Matt. I mean, I think this isn't the first time I've been on where Tom skated away when you're here. So I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I love the term too, skated away.
He did skate away. He put on his ice skates and skated away.
Skated away, and he's just got like one heel up in the air, just like toodaloo.
Exactly.
Oh man. So this is probably just gonna be 45 minutes of shitting on Tom. Let's do it, man. All right. We have the first topic. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
All right, first topic of the evening. Is Adam Cole the right choice to be the devil? There's a lot of speculation out there as to who this devil is and when the reveal is going to be and who it's going to be. Is Adam Cole the right choice?
I'll say this. There's only, in my opinion, one guy who would be a bigger deal if he was the devil, and I don't think anyone is buying that it's him, and that's CM Punk. If they pulled him out of their back pocket, I feel like you'd have to bow down to Tony Khan and be like, okay, you pulled it off. The long-term game here, the messing with kayfabe, the playing with our emotions, it would all seem like all of that backstage bullshit would have been worth it if that was the reveal. I don't think there's any way possible that's the reveal. I'm still not convinced Punk doesn't show up at Survivor Series. I still think that's on the table, possibly. I don't know if I buy that either, but I think Adam Cole is 100% the right choice because there's no one else to me that fits the bill. This is a big, all-encompassing reveal. It's got to the point where it has to be something huge or it has to make sense for the story. The something huge of CM Punk isn't going to happen, so you have to stick to the story. If this is Adam Copeland, if this is Roddy Strong, if this is Dolph Ziggler, if this is anybody like that, it's a letdown. I think all roads have led to it being Adam Cole. He's the one friend MJF has, and the one friend is going to stab him in the back. That is the story we're telling. That's where it has to go. I just really think anyone else, you're going away from the story in a way that doesn't seem right. And we always preach it on the flagship. Sometimes predictability in wrestling is a good thing. And I think this is one of those times where, yeah, it might not be the shock. I feel like a lot of people are expecting it, but when it happens, the impact of really this piece falling in the story would be like, of course, this is what needs to happen. So I think he is the right choice.
Yeah. I'm going to have to, basically agree, that he is the right choice. I have my suspicions about others, but just because of some certain promo aspects, and I kind of mentioned it in our chat. I was thinking maybe Wardlow. I know the body type doesn't fit with the devil mask. I get that, but some certain things that he was talking about. But 100%, he's the right choice, and here's why. What were we saying? I don't know, maybe even 6 months ago. There's no way MJF can ever turn babyface, right? No, absolutely way. This is how you get MJF to be a total babyface and at the same time become a superstar.
It's a double turn. It's a classic double. This has been a long played double turn.
Yes. And this is how you get MJF to the next level. Nobody's on the level of the devil except for, so to speak. But, this is how you get him. You use his ideology against him. And it's classic, classic Shakespearean novel right here. Like taken right out of Macbeth or Hamlet right here. It's like absolutely perfect. Now, one thing I will have to say, you're seeing a lot of things, like myself included. Well, it could be, so-and-so. It could be so-and-so. It should be, because people aren't buying Adam Cole necessarily right now. So I feel like, and I know we got the injury involved and things like that, but I feel like the reveal needs to happen sooner than later at this point. Because if you start stretching it out too long, then what happens? Well, people won't buy Adam Cole. It's got to be somebody else, and that's kind of what we're seeing, especially with the CM Punk and it's running through people's heads, which is a good thing too, but it also could be a bad thing. And I don't think we're there yet, where you could have a point where Adam Cole is not the right person in the idea of the fans. So
before anybody else goes, I love that you said that, J-Bone, because I completely disagree. I think this has to be. I think the reveal. I don't want the reveal to happen soon, but I'll let you guys go.
This feels like it's just getting started. Like, we've seen the devil just kind of poke around. Right? We've seen one interaction of the backstage brawl, and now we've seen the other one with throwing through the glass, but the devil wasn't there for the glass one. We've only seen the devil in person really once, right? Am I making that up? This is still in the infancy stages. And for me, Adam Cole is the safe way, the safe answer, the safe choice, and exactly what Chad was explaining, and makes sense. Everyone's expecting it. Nothing wrong with the predictability. It fits the story. Everything you said was dead on. Allow me to fantasy book for a minute. I know I started seeing it, and it was unfortunate for me, and I was hoping Tom would be here as I would have back, but I'm a work trip where I'm driving a whole lot of hours and myself thinking about wrestling like the nerd that I am. And something that makes total sense to me is it's not Adam Cole. And you sit there and you have Full Gear coming up, Full Gear happening, And we get to the end of Full Gear, and the devil finally shows his face, but comes and gets involved. And I didn't mean to show the face, like take the hood off. Finally gets involved. This goes all the way to World's End, where we still are picking people off. It's not this guy, it's that guy, it's not this guy. And we finally get all the way down to Adam Cole, and it's not Adam Cole. And I don't believe they have the balls to do it. And I'm sure that there's parallels that I'm taking this from in the past where it doesn't make 100% sense. But what if we take the mask off and it's Tony Khan? And this ties it into the bidding war of 2024. We're sitting here December 30th. The mask comes off. It's Tony Khan. Sure. Yeah, it was me, Austin. It was me all along. I understand that that's probably where I'm pulling this from, and I'm sure that I will be debunked immediately as this fed brain idiot. But all of this pulls together because we're sitting here at the end of the year, and we have Tony Khan protecting his company, protecting his brand. MJF is going to leave, and then out of nowhere, in some way, shape, or form, you have Wardlow being his hustle and costing MJF title. MJF goes into 2024 without the title. And that is a fun way. They have opportunity. Tony has an opportunity. We graciously call him Tiny Tony on the Extra Cooler Show. So I'll adapt that here. But Tiny Tony has the opportunity to take the wrestling world's attention by the balls and make it completely onto this story. And something that is not something that is not Adam Cole brings you in. And I don't believe it's CM Punk, but here we are, and we're into a different world. J-Bone's shaking his head.
No, I'm shaking my head because it's not CM Punk. I don't believe it at all. But I like what you're saying. I like what you're putting down.
I before Sneak goes, I gotta say, like, the booking of Wardlow being his. Because you're building Wardlow now. If it comes out that Wardlow is the strong arm of Tony, that's pretty cool. I like the 2024 bidding war tie-in. My one problem, it's like you say you need something that's not Adam Cole, which I agree. Them leaning so heavy, making it so obvious is ripe for a good swerve. And Tony would definitely be a shocker, but just how fans look at Tony, I feel like a lot of the fan base would eviscerate it if it's him. Like, Could you imagine having to see Tony Khan as an on-screen character to that regard? Like, I feel like the people that hate AEW would just use that as fuel for the fire. That's my one thing. You're playing with fire to make Tony Khan that guy. It could go really, really bad, or it could go pretty good.
You certainly are correct. And I just, that's why my argument here is that Adam Cole, yes, it could be the right choice, but it's the safe choice. And you got to think of something out the box. And it can't be, I've heard you guys talk about it last week. It's Swerve. Like, it can't be somebody that doesn't fit the storyline.
No.
But something fun, something new, something where you go, oh shit, it was right underneath our noses the entire time and we didn't see it. And like, even if it's just MJF, like, that would be a disappointment.
That would be horrible.
I feel like this is an opportunity where you have the entire industry by the balls and you can't let that go. You cannot let that go.
You're 100% right. It's the safe choice. But not in a bad way. It's just in a low risk way. Like,
correct.
It's safe. It's low risk. Anything outside of Adam Cole, it's a 50-50 shot of if it gets over. I feel like if you do Adam, it's like, yeah, okay, we expected that. But if anything other than CM Punk or Tony Khan's got a lot of questions around booking it that way too. But anything other than those two shockers that kind of still fit within the confines of the story you've laid out, anyone else is high risk, like, I feel like you're going to get a lot of criticism.
Yeah, 100%. And Tony being on my screen is not something I want to see, but it could be a way where you move into 2024 and MJF disappears for a while. You get Tony off screen, you forget about that, and then you have this triumphant return of the biggest baby face in the company with MJF, and it allows Tony to just cut it off, get out of our way. although he has been better the last 2 times we've seen him on screen, it doesn't feel as, everyone throws the cringy word around. That's not my thought. It feels more natural. Finally, it finally feels like he's feeling more natural on screen. But
now, Matt,
I agree.
with your fantasy booking at World's End, Tony reveals himself to be the devil. Within that booking, are you having Wardlow win the title at World's End?
No, I think that Wardlow costs MJF the title. And
Okay.
maybe it's Adam Cole. Maybe that's the person in the other side of the ring. But no, it's not that Wardlow is facing off against him, especially because his words were when you least expect it. He's choking him against the wall, right? I'm going to cost you everything that you deserve or everything that you have when you least expect it. And boom, that's it.
Okay.
Didn't Wardlow's last week say, I'm going to end your world?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And so that's what really maybe kind of gets thinking a little bit. In your world, world's in. I guess that's what I mean by sooner than later. Like, I think it needs to be a world's end point, the reveal. That's my opinion, at least.
I can get even further down this fantasy booking place where we get the devil at Full Gear just finally starting to pick off these Bullet Club Gold members, and it's finally just Jay and MJF at the end of the night. But that's enough for me. I know I can sit here. I do this at the time. I like to fantasy book, get myself excited, and then I actually watch the how it goes down, and I'm let down because I've got my expectations so high. So I'll leave that all for you. Here's my gift.
What do you think, Sneed?
Yeah. So Matt, don't give me the fantasy booking. It's fun. It's fun to fantasy book that, and it's fun to think that that we could recreate those days of McMahon and Austin. The only thing for me is that I think once you break the seal on Tony being an on-screen character, then you're on a slippery slope of high risk, high reward right there. Because if it goes over, great. But at that point, he's always going to be a character once you break that seal. So
100%. And that's why I'm an armchair quarterback sitting here.
Yeah. Mr. McMahon, once he came out, Vince has never not been Mr. McMahon,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he would have to pull that off perfectly. And I know the sentiment on Tony Khan in the wrestling world is pretty low, especially when he's on screen for anything. Anytime he even announces that he has an announcement, there's just a backlash of bullshit everywhere.
That's a whole nother topic.
So while that is fun, I think I'm just going to mirror what we always talk about on the flagship. I mean, I think that anybody other than Adam Cole, if it's not CM Punk, is not going to be the right choice. So
I'm thinking even Wardlow would feel wrong. Like, I feel like the devil, you've built the devil up in a way where all these misdirects, Wardlow, Samoa Joe, the match against Kenny Omega, all of these opponents that are vying for his title, they're fine. I like that they're crowding the room for MJF, but at the same time, like, none of them feel like they are on the level of the devil. You know what I mean? Like they don't feel like that to me.
Well, the thing about it too, man, you have to think that, every player in this story has been an arm out from the core. And
that's the best part of this story.
and the core of this story is Adam Cole.
Yeah.
That's where this whole thing started. I think you have to stick with the core of the story. It's great that there's so much going on around the story, but I think Adam Cole being that person to be the one to stab him when that's MJF's only person that he has in this whole world.
I think
Yeah.
We fantasy booked it, I believe, Sneed, where to me, you set it up. I don't know what pay-per-view you would do it at, but this is all building up to MJF versus the Devil at a pay-per-view in a main event. You go into the main event not knowing who the guy is.
Right.
You go into, like, you build the pay-per-view, MJF versus the Devil, and at the pay-per-view, the Devil will reveal himself prior to the match. You get both of them standing in the ring, the guy with the devil mask looking at MJF, and right before the bell rings, he unmasks, and MJF has to deal in this match with the fact that his best friend is behind all of the things that have happened. And it affects him in the match so much emotionally that he loses the title. Like, he's not on his game. I don't want the kind of a weird reveal on Dynamite. Use this to sell a pay-per-view. Use this to be like, hey, buy the pay-per-view and you're going to find out who the devil is. That's what I would do.
I got a question for you, Chad,
it.
because you were saying that, you know, you wanted to extend out. How far would you want this to go? Like double or nothing?
Bare minimum Revolution in March.
Okay. All right.
Because I would ramp up the devil. Like, I would ramp up the devil where opponents were being taken out. And really, like, it's not a thing that I don't need to see the devil every Dynamite, just a little flash of him here and there, and then jumpings and get him involved, because we've only seen the devil in that first jumping of Jay White.
Yeah.
He wasn't there when they attacked the Claim. It was his crew. And if you ramp that up as we get closer, World's End, I could kind of deal with, but Full Gear, absolutely not. That is too soon.
No.
Soon.
Full Gear is way too soon. I agree.
I don't want to know who the devil is Saturday.
It's too good. It's too good right now. It's too compelling.
Yeah,
People are tuning in to see this devil. Like, I feel like they haven't even milked the suspense of who it is yet.
The best thing that I've heard.
It's the third inning, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. It's the third inning.
Bottom of the third.
The best conspiracy that I've heard from this past week was that it's Jungle Boy because it was real glass that he threw him through, you know?
Stop. It's not Jungle Boy.
If it's Jungle Boy, it's going to riot. You're going to see me down on the flagship.
Yeah. Yep. All right, guys. Anybody have any final thoughts on Adam Cole and the devil before we move on?
I just got to say, Matt's, I was shitting on this through text on with the OG Fig Kid. I was like, no way, that's ripping off McMahon. But once you tied in that Wardlow was his strong arm, that kind of, I could kind of vibe on that. If it wasn't for all of the naysayers just eviscerating Tony Khan, I would be a little more open to it. I just think people would shit all over it.
I agree. There's
I think
risk for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think all we need is Bobby Boucher to come out and say, Baba said that you the devil.
There we go.
He has been doing videos of himself.
I saw it.
Okay, so
Mystical Clan.
all right. We're going to move on to the second topic of the evening. Does Survivor Series deserve to be included in WWE's Big Four pay-per-views? Now, Matt, this was the question you brought to the table, so I'll defer to you to go first.
All right. This may be because, like I said earlier, right in the middle of covering 1993 Survivor Series over at the Extra Cooler Show. But for me, the air has been let out of this Survivor Series balloon. And sure, they are really trying to keep it here. And I heard rumors that even back in 2009, there was a chance that it was going to go away. But for me, there is no way that we can keep Survivor Series included with the Big Four of the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, and SummerSlam, which was like the OG original Big Four, right? But now times have changed, and there's no way we can include it.
Interesting.
I think there is no way in hell this should be included. I think WWE's Big Four should now be the Big Three. I don't think there's another event they have that holds the weight of Rumble, Mania, SummerSlam. Those are the three gold standards for me. Full disclosure, as a child, Survivor Series was one of my favorite ones. You mix and match a 5-man team against a 5-man team. As a kid, I loved it. Going back and watching it, though, I don't love it as much as I did. Like it didn't serve story. It was just kind of a mix match of guys. And I'm not really into that today. So as a kid, I loved it because you're seeing just these dream matchups. But now I'm not big on it. And I hate the way Survivor Series today has taken on this kind of personality of being a Raw versus SmackDown pay-per-view. it just takes all the steam out of it. I don't care about brand supremacy. I don't care about any of that. I want story. And I especially hate, over the last 2 years, Survivor Series has kind of adopted war games. I do not like pay-per-views when they're surrounded around, okay, for this pay-per-view, you can come to expect this gimmick match. I don't like the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. I love the match, but the match should be used when it's needed. Not every year at this time we get a Hell in a Cell match. It feels cheap. I don't like Money in the Bank, where we know we're going to get a Money in the Bank match. Pull the match out when it's needed. I don't like this annual gimmick. The only annual gimmick I enjoy is Royal Rumble, and that is because it's directly tied into the world championship scene. Everything makes sense, and we've came to know that. But I think Survivor Series has completely fell off, and it's been falling off for years to me. Like, I don't think there's any... This one doesn't even feel important. It really doesn't. It does. I don't feel that it's like must-see big tentpole event for me. Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, when those happen, it's a, hey, call all of your buddies over. Let's have a barbecue. Let's throw in and get this event. Well, not throw in because now it's on Peacock, but you know what I mean? Like, it's a big time feeling. Survivor Series does not have that.
Yeah, Survivor Series for me, man, it as a kid, absolutely loved it. And I think it's because it was so gimmicky. You know, as a kid, that just it resonated a lot with me, because you can see Jerry Lawler and the Four Dinks versus, you know, Doink with all the people, you know, just and the teams that would be together. It just doesn't really make sense anymore. And especially with the brand split, which is one of the biggest things that I just am not behind, man. I hate a hard brand split, and I hate one versus the other in the same company. You know, you know, I think Matt, you said it, once the steam was out of the balloon, like, it's just, you can't get it back. And it's too gimmicky to be part of a tentpole event and be one of the big four. It's big three now. That's just how it is.
Now, so, I'm really interested, because J-Bone's reaction right out the gate was like, oh, interesting. Chad and I chat all over it. So I want to hear J-Bone's take on this one.
Well, I say interesting because I said, you know, if Survivor Series not in the big four, what would be put in the big four, you know? But so you know, both Chads kind of said, well, it would be renamed to the big three. But, you know, if you were to just keep it as a big four, you had to have a big four. I think it would, and according to the question, does Survivor Series need to be included in WWE's big four? That's the question. And I would say yes, it does. Because of the simple fact of a couple of things, tradition of the Survivor history. And, you know, WWE is built on history. It's built on that, you know, the annual events. And there's been a lot of changes in pay-per-view names especially between April and August, and September and October and December. You know, it's all floating around, different names, right? These four have been always Royal Rumble January, WrestleMania April, SummerSlam in August, and then Survivor Series in November. You know, when those months coming up, when November hits, I'm getting Survivor Series that month. There's no question about what's happening.
And all of that is fine. And the nostalgia is an important piece of why Survivor Series should not go away. I'm not advocating for that in any way, shape, or form, for exactly what J-Bone just said. But there's no way that we can include it in the big four. I think it's a lot of what you guys have already said. It's becoming a detriment to the storytelling, for like the year-long storytelling.
Right. Maybe
it's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing from like, it allows the booker to reset in a sense, and like, all right, we'll take this little tangent, we'll come out here, we'll do this stupid stuff, and then we'll come back again. And even with War Games, I think they're doing a better job of booking the War Games this year on both Raw and what I would expect to be the women's side on SmackDown, when we just got all of this damage control stuff put together again. But I think we'll talk about that next. But for me, it's really about the way WWE has already acknowledged it's not part of the big. and I didn't into for Seth on the Chick Foley show. Anyway, Royal Rumble 2023, Alamo Dome, San Antonio, a huge event. WrestleMania, I don't even need to say anymore. SoFi Stadium, 2 nights. SummerSlam, Ford Field in Detroit. Survivor Series 2023, Allstate Arena, formerly the Rosemont Horizon. It's a small venue. The last time they were there, Survivor Series 2019, the attendance was 13,000 people. That is the difference of the WWE has acknowledged to us subtly that Survivor Series is not a big 4 pay-per-view. And to answer J-Bone's question, you got to look to Money in the Bank as being the 4th. If you were to slide one in, and you can argue, all right, here we go. Let's talk Saudi. Maybe Crown Jewel is the other one because you're talking about,
you would say that.
You're talking about a major event, large people, a stadium level event, and that comes with its own pieces that I don't, I'm sure we don't really want to get into at the moment. But really, Money in the Bank 02 in London was this past one, and they did it in stadiums previous to that. So it feels like that is the replacement for Survivor Series.
As much as I shit on Hell in a Cell and Money in the Bank as events, it does feel bigger than Survivor Series. Money in the Bank, if you had to slide in a 4th, I agree. And just from the places they're holding the events, like you said, if they thought Survivor Series was a big deal, it would be in a big place. Like, you're dead on. They are not going to miss out on more ticket sales. But just to what J-Bone was saying, if this question was, should Survivor Series be included in WWE's Big 4, I would say absolutely yes. The tradition, the history, it should be. But they've got to up the way we feel about it. They've got to change the way we feel about it. But does it deserve to be included as it stands today? No. So I'm with you, J-Bone. It deserves to be there. I want it to be there, but they got to bring their A game on this event.
I was about to say that. So that's the one thing I was going to say. If they were to tie the winner of Survivor Series, winner of War Games, to whoever wins, let's say like whoever gets the pinfall or whatever, they get the 30th spot in the Royal Rumble. Attach some type of stipulation or something along the lines, or they could pick their number. Would that make it a little bit more interesting? Because you're connecting.
Yeah, I think it would make it more interesting. Yeah, but you have to do that though. You can't. This brand, Raw versus SmackDown. That's you got
you got to do away with that. And
it's got to be something. I like where you're going though. It's got to be something. Kind of how the Rumble attaches itself to Mania. It's almost like something here has to attach itself to the Rumble, and you start the through line, because right now I think WWE's worst period in the calendar year is shortly after SummerSlam all the way to the Rumble. That's their weakest season. It always seems like they phone it in around the holidays, and I feel like the Survivor Series has suffered because of that mentality. It feels like everything's just kind of holding pace until we get to the Rumble, where if they tied it into the Rumble somehow, some stipulation, like you get to pick your spot, or you get to come in at 30, like you said, like something like that could make it matter a little more.
I think it's allowed to take that down period because it's going up against football. And I think that's really it. But, that to me is why this is the lull. But I feel like this year, more than any, they have kept a similar level. Sure, it's not the same level as where we were with the Bloodline storyline, and that's really what has taken the back seat, so to speak. But raising Judgment Day up, raising up Damage Control at this point too, I think are all good things. But yes, and bottom line, they've already told us that Survivor Series is not a Big 4, and just as Chad, you were saying earlier, Survivor Series War Games is the new Hell in the Cell. It's just replaced that.
Yep.
I think this notion too that WWE is allowed to drop down in interest level because of football is complete horseshit. Because if you look at AEW too, they've gotten more interesting since football season started.
Yeah.
With the previous topic we talked about. So I think that's just a cop out. Like, well, it's football season.
That's when you should be firing your guns, your big guns.
Right. Like, it's like, well, we're just going to kind of do this, and then we'll wait till football season goes away, and
they've
then we'll
always done that. Even as a kid, I remember feeling like it's kind of dragging its feet.
Monday Night Raw, Monday Night Football.
Yeah,
but Monday Night Raw
Right.
is not the premier show anymore. It's Friday Night SmackDown.
Yeah,
that's true.
and I feel like SmackDown has been cooking more than Raw has. I mean, we can argue that, but that's a whole nother question. Let's not get there.
That's it's one of the reasons why we moved Raw down to Tuesdays. It's because of SmackDown.
All right. Anybody have any final thoughts on Survivor Series before we move on?
Hey, Trips, step your game up, dog. Make Survivor Series watchable.
Come on, Paul.
Time to play the game. All right.
Paul.
All right. Final topic of the evening. Is WWE's women's division booked better than AEW's women's division?
Oh, snap.
I love the picture of Tony Storm in the middle there in the bottom. So good.
All right, let's start there with Tony Storm. You want to do that?
Yeah.
There are two stories in my eyes in the AEW world. Tony Storm has my full attention. Julia Hart has my full attention, and all of the things that are happening around those two. We then have Chris Statlander, who honestly doesn't do it for me. I feel like there's still some training wheels on with her, and I want more out of her. I think in-ring is good. I won't go to great, but it's good. And for me, it just doesn't connect. Shida, as your other champion, is another one that just doesn't connect for me. For whatever reason, it's that last week, Chad, you were talking about who was saying the cosplaying as a wrestler. That it was me. And to me, that's a big thing about LA Knight. It's a big thing about Stat to an extent. It's a big thing for Shida for me. It feels like they're trying too hard to be wrestlers. And the full buy-in of the gimmicks is, I guess, what I'm gravitating towards. And, I'm feeling it even more in the moment as I look at Tony Storm and Julia Hart here. And those are the two that have matches at this point on the Full Gear card. And for me, that's where the focus has been. But nothing else really grabs my attention. We've got Ruby Soho off in a very WWE-esque love story kind of thing that's going on. And there's not much else. While on the WWE side, and I guess I should rewind a bit, I think that they're both somewhat equal at this point. And I think that really at the end of the day, both of them are an afterthought. It is the men's storylines first, and then we'll get to the women's later. But they are on the WWE side making, at least on Raw, they're making Rhea as one of their focal points. But it's not giving to the division. It's just giving to Rhea at this point. So I don't think that that's good either. Until this past week on SmackDown, it was kind of the same mishmash level, kind of just whatever. And then they gave us this, what I believe to be really interesting and potential really, really sky high for this damage control stuff, as you've heard me talk about it on multiple instances in the last 40 minutes already. So for me, I'm really intrigued by that storytelling. I'm really intrigued by the what they are potentially laying out and where we could go from here. And I just don't know if I have that same future thought, future is gold, like the future is in good hands side on AEW. I don't think I feel it yet.
Yeah. So I'm going to preface this. I think both companies do a horrible job at booking the women. But if we're looking at the question, and I will say, I think Impact is heads and shoulders above the best in women's wrestling. I do think, us as fans, we look at that, look at this question as like, well, AEW just needs to book better. WWE needs to book better. Well, what us as fans need to do is much like the Give Divas a Chance movement. Us as fans need to be more vocal on how crappy of a job that these companies are doing. That to me would because it's all about placement for me on where they put the women's division on the cards. So if we go back to the question, is WWE's women's division booked better than AEW's? I would say yes, because I do think the placement of the women is in a better spot on the card, like on the physical card and where you have the show. To me, like where they have booked AEW's women's division, and I'm talking Rampage, I'm talking Collision, I'm talking Dynamite. It is like at the worst points. You can almost predict when it's coming on. They do have some interesting characters, probably, with this Tony Storm and Julia Hart, probably more, or getting to the point more, a lot more interesting than WWE. But I feel like they don't do as good of a job booking the women, just not featuring them as much. We take a look at Rhea. Rhea's right there in the middle. She was in multiple segments last night. She's considered to be one of the storylines. Is she the leader of the Judgment Day? That's the argument right now, going back and forth. She's the women's world champion. Now, when you come to look at the rest of the card on Raw specifically, it's not quite up to snuff, and they do need to do a better job on that back end of the women. But I do think that the way they feature their women is in strategic, better spots than AEW does.
I want to issue a preface like you guys did because I totally agree. Both of these companies do absolute trash work with their women's divisions from a storytelling standpoint. Trash, both of them. And I think that's why I get hot about this, because there's so much criticism to tear down AEW's women's division when I look at WWE and I'm like, they're doing the same thing. Like these women, yeah, they get spots. They do get way more spots, especially Rhea. But you're not really telling any investing stories on WWE or AEW. And I only say that because both companies show that they can do it with the men, but they're not willing to stick their neck out and give us some deep stories for the women. Like it's always just a match. Like case in point, Crown Jewel, we get a 5-way scramble for the women's title. Like,
yeah,
what is that? And AEW was constantly getting shit on for the fatal 4-ways in the women's division. I'm like, they're doing the same thing. Like, so that bothers me. I think WWE, if we're talking star power, in-ring talent, WWE wins by a landslide. Like it's no question they have a more seasoned roster. They have way more talented people. And that right there is the reason I am going to say AEW is booked better, because in my opinion, with the wealth of talent, seasoned talent that WWE has, this is the best you can give them. Like WWE, if you look at AEW's roster of women, there's no one on the level of hardly any of WWE's roster. Like they've got the Charlottes, the Baileys, the Beckys. They just got Jade, who's a bona fide superstar in waiting. You've got Rhea, who you've built. You've got Asuka, who's a killer. You just brought Kairi Sane back. You have Bianca, who's absolutely phenomenal. You have all of this talent, and this is what you can give me? So I have to discredit WWE because you have far and away the most talented women's roster on the fucking planet. And this is what you're giving me. For that alone, I look at AEW's roster. It's a bunch of young, trying to get their foot in the door, young talent. Statlander, taken from the indies. Sky Blue, taken from the indies. Julia Hart, an 18-year-old girl who came out as a cheerleader for the Varsity Blondes. You don't have a lot of seasoned people. Toni Storm's seasoned, and she's showcasing what she can do. Britt Baker, homegrown. You've got all of this talent that's just trying to make it. They have no star power to them, and they're trying. They're not getting a lot of good segments, like J-Bone said. They're not getting featured enough. They need to be featured. But the fact that WWE just has this, they're spoiled with talent, and they're sitting there doing fatal 4-ways and really not doing a whole lot with them. That's why I have to take points away for that. Like you should be doing better. You should be doing better.
I fully agree with this. Should be doing better, specifically on the Raw side, because I think the roster there is less than on the SmackDown side. and all the focus is just on Rhea. It's all on that, and it's not doing any service to anybody on that level. They just had to pull up Zoe Stark and just truly make her and like give us excuses why we should care about that match that's coming up at Survivor Series. And I don't think anybody's really buying it, but I think the problem for me with the AEW booking is that it's never constant. It's like, oh, we got to do something for the ladies, and then it drops right off again. And then they disappear forever. And we don't get them again. Maybe it's injury related. Maybe there's stuff we don't know. But like Britt right now, like, sure, Britt was the hottest thing in the entire division for the longest time, and rightfully so. And then she disappears, and we don't see her for a long period of time. And then we forget about her. And then she's one of the ones that's being talked about for the devil just because she's gone and there's nothing for us to talk about, and she's attached to Adam Cole, although I guess she came out and said it wasn't her. I guess that doesn't mean anything either. But like, for me, it's so start, stop, yes, no. Like, Sheeta's another example of it. Like, here, there, no, here, and just that start, stop, not getting enough screen time, consistent screen time is why I guess I just don't see it as being better booked. And yes, there's an embarrassment of riches on the WWE side, specifically on the SmackDown roster, where they had a really fun Bianca going to turn? Bianca's doing these bad guy type things, and then she disappeared for a while. And they're doing the same thing. So if you stick with something and you really care about bettering the division, you stick with something and you run with it and you put them in front of us like they are doing with Rhea at all times. And Jade is hovering in the background. They're seemingly finding a spot for her. And maybe when we figure out that they're going to be having a War Games on the women's side, maybe she's the last contestant there. The contestant. I'm on Price is Right all of a sudden. She's the last one in the match, and that's where she fits in. But I think if you're going to extend WWE to NXT as well, then we have a real shut case. This is done. But for me, I'm really focusing in on SmackDown and Raw.
Yeah, that's the same. That's kind of when I was thinking about this. It was WWE, SmackDown, Raw versus AEW, and man, just both of them do. It's so laughable how bad each company's women's division is. It's when you really sit and think about the time that AEW puts into their women, and the placement, and I know Hawk he's very.
I was waiting to bring him up.
Yeah. I mean, this guy's very against the women's division.
Girl wrestling.
But when I look at the booking, I'm like, I understand why you're not invested.
Yeah, because you get one match a night, and now that we have two shows.
Uh-oh. Your mic cord dropped out, Sneed. I can't hear you. Just to kind of touch on what Matt said about the shit, I lost my thought. I guess what I'm thinking of is I agree that AEW has a start and stop thing. I agree. But when I look at people like Julia Hart and Toni Storm, it gives me hope. It gives me okay, see, when you're bringing these girls out every week doing these gimmicks, that's what we want. People are attaching themselves to timeless Toni Storm. People are getting behind Julia Hart, even if she's just, a valet sometimes, but now she's getting more matches. She got the title shot. I think that's big. And with Rhea, it cracks me up with Rhea in WWE because she has become a star, but none of her star making has really came off of stories and feuds for her title or for her as a wrestler. It's really birthed out of the Judgment Day and her and Dom. And
it's an extension of the men's stories. Yeah.
Exactly. She's getting big off of being attached to the men's stories, which is unfortunate. And I guess
in this conversation, she had to be ignored because it's not a women's storyline. It's not. Right. And Raw is that scramble that you spoke about, which is sure, it's important from a Saudi perspective because of the women's rights, and getting them onto the show is important. And I truly believe that. And having where they came from to where they are now is important, and what they've done there. And I respect that. But that doesn't say that it's good storytelling.
Right.
But I'm
right.
sorry, I interjected after you.
No, the only thing I was going to say, I guess, the thing that kind of tips it for me, and I do think AEW does a disservice by their women for the most part, and WWE as well. But I guess I have low expectations for AEW. My expectations aren't as high. They're not as proven. I have high expectations for the roster from WWE, and they don't meet my expectations. And maybe I should have the same high expectations for AEW, and this would be different. But new company, when they started this company, dude, the women's division was swallowed up by WWE. They were essentially starting from nothing. So it takes a while to build a division. How long did WWE have a women's roster when no one gave a shit about it? It was treated completely differently. And when you're WWE, let's be honest, they like to trumpet this, but when it's used as an expectation, they back away from it. WWE is the global leader of pro wrestling. It is the brand that everyone knows is synonymous for pro wrestling. Like when it's the same thing with Q-tips, and UFC, Kleenex, like it's that whole thing. This brand is attached where some people, they don't even call it pro wrestling. They'll say, oh, you watch that WWE stuff. When you are at that level, when you are the big dog in the yard, I expect more from you. I just do. And I don't think they meet expectations.
Yeah, neither is meeting expectations, but in the same sense, how much rope are you going to give AEW? Like
enough to hang themselves.
When does the rope? I mean, they're maybe there already, right? But like, is it to the point where they're running out of rope? They're running out of time, and maybe these two ladies and three on our screen from the AEW side can really turn the corner. And it's the consistent storytelling, get me invested, and these backstages with the ladies every once in a while is not doing it. The stuff that is good, Matt, is Julia Hart stuff.
Yeah, I think they're pulling at the noose. They're trying to loosen the rope that's trying to hang them with Toni Storm, with Julia Hart. They're struggling to get that last gasp of air. With them signing Mariah May and introducing her into the Toni Storm angle, I'm like, okay, there could be some story here. Yep. With the rumors of Mercedes Moné working with AEW in the future, there's a hope for something more coming. With Britt Baker teasing her return, I'm like, how does she play in? Like, there's a lot of question marks, a lot of ifs. I've been conditioned from shitty AEW women's booking where I'm like, it's kind of an afterthought, and maybe that should be an indictment on it. But it's just the expectations for me that teeter it.
So here we go again. Let's go back to the question, and the same applies there, is that Toni has an opportunity if Mercedes is to come in, and we've seen her on television or on pay-per-view sitting in the crowd, which makes you believe that, all right, the door is open. If she comes in, they have to make something out of that. It's like just with the devil scenario, you have to and that is your opportunity to really jumpstart where you go. I don't know where that could be at this time, but if she is on the way in, and if Mercedes is the savior of the women's division, you can't botch that. You have to take advantage. You have to go for it.
Yeah, I don't think she's the savior. I don't want them to treat it like that either. I don't want it to be like she's going to be the one to bring. I think she adds to it, but I'm with you. She has to come in. She has to be, in my opinion, she has to instantly, if Toni Storm has the title, she has to instantly be involved in a big time story. Don't have her work a program with Sky Blue. Nobody cares. Make her seem like a big deal.
Instant credibility for the entire division.
If this was like 6 months ago and we didn't have Collision, I would definitely say, I have to agree, that AEW would be booked better, or I guess the answer would be no. But at this point, like, I feel like it's just like, no excuse. Like, just do better.
Yeah.
And that's what I say. Like, it comes down to the fans. I hate to give this person credit, but Hawk You know, but he is kind of onto something. Just I'm going to use better wording, not girl wrestling. You know, but I honestly, like, as fans, like, what would get promoters to pay attention is if you change the channel, and hurt their bottom line. Now, continue to support the women on social media, buy their merch, do all that stuff, but the bottom dollar of these companies will be like, okay, well, we got to do something.
Yeah,
you know, that would be the movers and shakers, or get on social media and kind of bang that drum. That's kind of what us as fans, that's our responsibility. It really is, because we're the consumer.
I've talked about this before, and this is a kind of goes into my expectations of both companies. Like, WWE doesn't necessarily, every company wants great ratings, but WWE can take a hit during a segment to give the women, because they've conditioned us to tune in where the fans are there. AEW is in a tough spot because they're a new company. They haven't really grown their viewership. So ratings really, and they're in a deal making year where they're trying to get this TV extension. So it's a tough spot to be in as a booker in AEW, because you're like, okay, I need to grow my women's division. I need to give them more time. But when I give them time, we pull a low rating. So then you're in this catch-22 where you're like, they need more screen time, but when they're on the screen,
well,
they're not pulling. Yeah. They're not. So if I give 4 women's segments on Dynamite and it's drawing low ratings, what do I do? Because I want to grow my women's division, but you have to condition people to buy into that. WWE has done that. So AEW, if it's a channel changing segment, as a young company, that hurts you a lot more than someone who's tried and true and been in the business for however many years.
It feels very 1980s to me. It's like, come see Hogan and Andre and Snuka versus Piper, and then then we got the women's wrestling.
It's like Alundra Blaze in the early 90s. The
right.
Token.
Yeah. Alundra Blaze versus Bertha May.
But to say more towards that, of when they did have Jade, it was a squash match. And it was something that you had a no-name that wasn't going to be there the next week, and you don't have any buy-in. You don't have any connection to this match, because it's all right. We know where this is going, and then you're moving on, and you're not paying attention. So,
and that's a tough spot to be in too. That's a tough spot to be in too, because Jade, when they had her and we saw the star power, dude, she was green as goose shit. You
100% agree.
You can't, because if you stick her out there and expose her, then the guild is off the rose,
right.
So WWE is benefiting from that.
Yeah, they're continuing to do it. It's not just the Jade thing. It's a every scenario. And
100%.
Yeah.
Sneak, you got your microphone fixed?
Yeah, I'm back here. I mean, basically, the only thing I'll add is that I'm very hopeful for both companies, and this Toni Storm and Julia Hart thing that's going on right now really gives. I hope that this rope is loosened a little bit, and that they're breathing. Because I'm really hopeful with this, with Shida and Toni Storm. I feel like we're moving towards Toni Storm being the champ. So
yeah, I think what all 4 of us are saying is like, hey, Tony Khan, hey, Paul Levesque, give us some women's stories. Like, treat them like you do the men. Let us invest in it, because both companies could do a whole lot better.
100%.
Yep.
All right. We have a round robin.
We got one round robin. Yep.
Let's move to the round robin.
Round robin.
Does more pay-per-views and premium live events help or hurt storytelling? I think it helps. I think it helps. Real quick, I'll say I think it helps because I think that if you have more pay-per-views, then if you do have a turd storyline, then you can wrap it up quick and start again.
I'll say initially I thought it hurt. I was against AEW bringing in more events. I liked the specialness of the original 4. Then they gave us Forbidden Door. But the proof is in the pudding. When they had long stretches between events, storytelling would often lack. And I think since they've introduced more events like Wrestle Dream, World's End, All In, I feel like their storytelling has improved. I feel like they're being held accountable week to week instead of getting some random Dynamite that's just full of dream matches. Every episode has story. So from AEW's perspective, I think more events are obviously helping. WWE, they've got it down to a science, as far as the way they book towards their events. So I think more events help a company stay honest to the storytelling.
Yeah, I would say it depends on the promotion, kind of like you were alluding to, but like in AEW's case, yes, it's definitely helped. If you're WWE, like right now, you're pretty much every 3 or 4 weeks for the most part. You don't want to add any more. You don't want to go every 2 weeks, even though you have the Peacock. So it depends. I think Impact would do better, or TNA, should I say, would be better with doing more events, more monthly events, because right now they're about 6 weeks out between the events. So I'm going to say it mostly depends on the promotion, but yes, overall.
I have to agree with Jay here. It depends on the promotion, and each one has a reason for what they should be doing, right? And AEW adding more shows, getting closer to that 6 week part. Right now we are going into full gear. 6 weeks later, we will be at World's End. Like, that feels perfect for them. And I feel like that's what they should be moving towards. And even on the Impact TNA side, like that makes sense for them. On the WWE side, I think we've actually seen them pull away a little bit, and it's not every month like clockwork, and they feel like they're pulling away 1 or 2 every once in a while, and it's not been that every 3 to 4 weeks, and I feel like that's helping them. So it's on both sides, but for me, there's that razor thin line in the middle, and it depends on the consumption of the products, how it all happens. But for me, it's that 6 week point seems like the perfect amount for storytelling on either brand.
Yeah, I'm with you, Matt. I'm with both of you guys. I do think it's company to company, because sometimes when WWE was churning out all those events, there were definite events where there would be a match where I'm like, this just feels like it should be on Raw or SmackDown. Like, there's a lot of filler.
That was Crown Jewel.
You get there 2 weeks or 2 months in a row, and you have the same match. You're going, why is this on a pay-per-view for a second time? Like, it's all the same thing. So that 6 week mark in my eyes, and as the consumer and as somebody that follows these stories, that to me seems like the sweet spot. And you can, pick it up shorter, and you can make something happen in a instant if you really need to.
Yeah.
All right, man. Matt, it has been great having you back on. Let everybody know where they can find you and the Extra Cooler Show.
All right. So you can find me on Instagram at Extra Cooler is Nick. You can find me at Matt's in the Cooler, all one word there. And you can find the Extra Cooler Show wherever you find your podcast every Wednesday morning. Again, we have a homework match followed by an extra credit episode talking about all the good things in wrestling now. And come check us out. I'm sure you will not be disappointed, as we have a lot of laughs and talking about some old school wrestling mixed in with the new. So boys, thank you again. Always appreciate being on the Tavern in any capacity, and of course, the debate is just tremendous. So thank you again, guys.
Yeah,
Tom, you ruined it.
Yeah, Tom ruined it. And thanks for coming on, dude. And guys, the nostalgia. Just speaking personally, I love the nostalgia episodes, the inside jokes on Extra Cooler. I love that you guys have been implementing the extra credit episodes more, because at one point you guys have brought it up more, speaking current stuff. I love that too. J-Bone, what's going on with Coming Down the Aisle? Let them know where you're at, dude.
comingdowntheaislepod.com. Let's see, this coming week, as you're listening to this, Miles and I will be doing the list, where we're going to be talking top 10 Survivor Series matches of all time. You can also check out right after you listen to this podcast, of course, check out the latest edition of the regular Coming Down the Aisle podcast, where I have usually a great guest, and we watch a match together, and I'll be talking everything Full Gear. So
awesome.
Check that out.
Awesome. All right, guys, that's going to wrap us up for this edition of the Turnbuckle Debate. Make sure you guys are heading over to theturnbuckletavern.com for all of your tavern needs. You'll find everything you need right over there. J-Bone, I'm going to throw to you to get your shit in. We usually let Tom do it, but
I got something for you. Raw Down, baby. The Raw Down every Tuesday, 9/8 Central. Tuesday. Watch it. Raw Down.
Awesome. With all that being said, court is dismissed.